Greetings, this is Craddock. Very excited today to bring you the Season 18 starter build for Wizard that I am at least going to take. This is one of many paths you could go. You could go Legacy of Dreams, like we did last season, Legacy of Nightmares. You could do the Seasonal Journey, or you could choose to do neither of those this season. Interestingly enough, there is an upgrade path due to one of the latest additions into the legendary pool, the Messerschmitt's Reaver, that allows this build to excel. Now, in past seasons, you were able to do this as well, but only if you had found an Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac. And it was considerably less powerful because we didn't have new sets, such as Captain Crimson's and All Kill's, a newly revised sets. Let me rephrase that. So, the base idea was, you could run Chantodos just with Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac, and that would do Torment 7 alone. But the problem was the ring is so hard to find and get this early on in season, so that was the issue. You could never get that configuration going in time. Next season, though, the Messerschmitt's Reaver will be much easier to acquire. And this is mostly due to the fact that it is only one of 4 two-handed axes in the legendary pool. So, as you can imagine, you have a very high chance of getting this on your upgrade rare upon season start. And you also, even if you don't get it then, once you hit 70, it will be very quick, or relatively quick, to acquire it. And the base of this build is amazing. Instead of the Zodiac, we're using the Messerschmitt's Reaver. Reduces the remaining cooldown of one of your skills by 1 second when you slay an enemy. Very configurable for running Nephilim Rifts, especially while leveling and after initially hitting 70, a lot more freeing than the Zodiac is in this regard. Allows us to run this configuration and just dominate rifts. Now, of course, we won't have very high attack speed with this sort of configuration, but it will still deal tremendous amounts of damage, right? So this is basically what the build will look like after you initially hit 70. I'm going to reel it back though and talk a little bit about the progression up to this point. But if you're an experienced player and you just want something to look for, you can look at the D3 Planner listings that I have put together and just click through those. I will put a link and for the guide in the video description. So, but there are a couple of supporting items that are very important here. Of course, the Cane set and the All-Killed set, those are going to be very important, and they're craftable sets. So as long as you're doing bounties while you are leveling up, the idea is you acquire the recipes for these, and then once you hit 70, if you have acquired enough veiled crystals while leveling, you'll be able to craft these, and then put them on immediately after hitting 70, or close enough to immediately after hitting 70, right? Yeah, so the Captain Crimson's now gives a lot of damage, also gives even more cooldown and resource than it did before, gives reduced damage taken from resource cost reduction as well, just a little bit. And then same thing here, All Killed's giving elite damage reduction, damage reduction, and a damage multiplier. So going to be very nice boost to the build. Squirt's Necklace going to be integral here as a supporting item. Even if you don't find this while leveling up, you still have a fairly high chance of doing that because this is a level 1 item. It's fairly easy to gamble, actually, even though gambling for amulets is very costly. You can get this fairly efficiently just by creating a new character after hitting 70 if you haven't found it yet, and then rolling blood shards on that new character. Now the class of the new character is very important because Wizard has 2 amulets in the level 1 pool for Squirt's they have Squirt's Necklace and then the Arcane amulet. So there are 2 amulets in the pool. Whereas Necromancer and Witch Doctor, those classes only have Squirt's Necklace. So if you're rolling for Squirt's Necklace, make sure you have space on your roster to be able to create another character, and then make that class a Witch Doctor or a Necromancer to roll amulets on if you're going for, this piece is missing and you want that. All right, now let's step through a little bit of, I'm not going to go through everything. If you want to look at the nitty-gritty details, you can look at the guide, the written guide, which I will have a link for as well. But the general idea here is when you're leveling 1 to 70, there are a couple of possibilities that are fairly likely to happen due to RNG. You may get one or none of these, right? So the intent here is, with my thought, with this sort of setup and progression, is to be able to get into Veer as quickly as possible and acquiring the Veer supporting items without wasting time on other extracting and cubing or upgrading rare other items. So the thought here is that initially you will upgrade a rare 2-hand axe to try and get the Messerschmitt's Reaver, and there's a 25% chance to get that. So you'll upgrade the blacksmith, you'll craft a level 70 axe. If it has, you look at the stats for that one, because you still want a 2-handed weapon with reduced level requirement. So if it, rolled properly and has the slow effect, the slow secondary, you can put that one aside, craft another one, and then use one of the two as an upgrade rare. Whichever one is worse, right? You use that one. If you're lucky enough, you have a 25% chance to get the Messerschmitt's Reaver, and I've tested this. It's pretty much 1 out of 4 chance to get this. You've hit the jackpot, because the leveling process will be super smooth. You'll be able to cube this item and then wear the Swami whenever you go to gamble for it, if you're lucky enough to get it as well. There's about a 56% chance to get the Swami, but you have to roll for it at level 30. So you're going to do a couple things like go get the cube. You might start doing some bounties, to try and collect the recipes for the Oghilds and Captain Crimson set. And during that time, you might hit 30. Just make a mental note to set everything aside, go roll blood shards. Okay, so let's say you were not lucky enough to get the Messerschmitts on the upgrade rare, but you did get the Swami. There's about a 54% chance. You were lucky enough to get that. And you have some blood shards remaining. Save those blood shards until you level up again to level 33. So going from 30 to 33, you wait. And then once you hit 33, you can roll for the Etched Sigil, so a source. If you were lucky enough to get that source, you can then cube the Etched Sigil. This is why we don't want to cube the Swami right off the bat. We want to wait till at least level 33. There are a couple of different paths you could take here. Another potential one is that, hey, I was lucky enough to upgrade rare. I got the Messerschmitts. I got the Swami. I've got remaining shards. What do I do with them? You don't need the Etched Sigil because you've already going to have cubed the Messerschmitts. So you save those extra shards until 33, just like you would do for the Etched Sigil, but you roll them on belts instead, because you can also get the Fazula at that level. Fazula's Improbable Chain, which is really good for the Archon setup later on. But it's a lower chance as well to get this item, but it's good to mention if you are insanely lucky and have remaining shards, you can still go for Fazulas here. But if you weren't as lucky and you didn't get the Messerschmitts, definitely go for the Etched Sigil. And then the other possibility is, hey, I didn't get really all that lucky on either task, but I did get a Swami. My blood shard roll, I did get the Swami, but I spent all my shards. I didn't get an Etched Sigil or anything. It's a pretty fair way to level up to 70 is just having the Swami. So at this point, if all you had was the Swami, you're going to use your 1 cube use on Swami. And remember, we only get 1 cube use if you're going for the upgrade rare, because upgrade rare uses 25 Death's Breath. We only have 35 total, and we're using 3 Death's Breath to upgrade our crafter companions, or the armorer, the mystic, and the jeweler, right? So it's anyway, it's it's a bit complicated, but if you end up with this, it's still a good leveling experience, and you can still level with Archon. All of these builds will be Archon based. You will want to re-roll your affixes on your yellow items that you're acquiring as you're leveling up to cooldown. And you'll get a base of at least 40% cooldown, and there will be a gap in between the time when Swami overlap ends and your Archon becomes available. There is some time you will have to wait there, but it will still increase your clear time throughout the Rift, and even more so if you were able to get either a Messerschmitt's or an Etch Sigil. I am recommending Blizzard Apocalypse for your secondary channeled spell. And you can even swap out, if you're having trouble with resource, you can swap this out, for example, to Ray of Frost if you want to save even more resource, or Arcane Torrent. And then you even have option here on the third passive, if you don't need the resource from Astral Presence, you could go for something like Galvanizing Ward, especially if you were to find a Squirts early. That would be, having the extra shielding would be really nice, right? So there's some configuration here that you can play around with. As you're leveling, just keep in mind that those variations are there and accessible. Now, once you hit 70, you'll hit stage 2, stage 1, what I've labeled as stage 1. You'll craft these sets. You may not have gotten enough veiled crystals, so you might have to do a few more rifts to be able to craft both of them, but you will have enough materials in general. Go back and get the squirts, like I mentioned, and you'll be able to run this build, which is be absolutely kick-ass for just clearing house. Now, couple of notable things about this build. We are running Diamond Skin to help increase the uptime of squirts. The idea here is that you'll begin doing rifts and greater rifts to get your Gogok as quick as possible leveled up. You're going to want to be able to, at this point, maybe find a Greed's Ring. If you're lucky enough, go ahead and get the Boon of the Hoarder. If you're lucky enough. That's kind of random, I know, but look out for items Saint Archus and the Aquila Cuirass, because that's included in stage 2 here, where you then have been rolling blood shards on Belt and Bracer, and have acquired the Fazulas and the Nemesis Bracer at level 70. If you've picked up either one of St. Archus or Aquila, you can then include those in the build and do very well. Note here, there's a lot of configurability with the last passive, like the Second Life, Unstable Anomaly, Galvanizing Ward, and Evocation. These will pretty much be required, but Illusionist, this passive here is optional. I feel the mobility would be great here. Shielding from Sleek Shell, mobility as well, especially since you probably won't have the Hoarder Gem at this point. And then you have the option for Barrier Blades here. Instead of running Static Discharge, if that's your preference. Really, really nice having this freedom. And then eventually, after you have Rorg, of course, you can fit in all of these items, drop some of the set items, but to keep them on hand. Eventually, you will get to this stage, which is close to the end stage, where you have started acquiring Veer pieces, and you have been able to re-roll them. You've been able to disenchant enough Forgotten Souls to where you can begin using the set re-roll. I think it's the 4th recipe in the cube. To re-roll those set items, to make sure you have specific pieces, you're going to need either the shoulder piece, the gloves, the helmet, or the chest piece. I've got Aquila in the chest right now, but you could swap that out for the Veer's chest piece and then run Leok's Crown or St. Archew's, whichever one, you could just slap it in. Especially if you have a Hail of Carini, toughness wouldn't be as much of an issue. I'm just trying to portray, any sort of combination that could come in. And you would run this for your Nephilim Rifting setup. Note the Bane of the Powerful. You'll have to level this up a little bit initially when you hit 70 because you won't have found your Gogok, perhaps. After you find your Gogok, focus on that fully. If you find a Hoarder, that's second priority after Gogok. And then, of course, after that is the Bane of the Powerful, because this Bane of the Powerful is more impactful, and you've already put some effort into it at that point, than using the Trap Gem, especially for... see, this is only 22.5% multiplier, whereas this is 20% plus all the elite damage and leap damage reduction. So, at least for Nephilim Rifting, you will want to use Bane of the Powerful instead of Trapped initially. And then, of course, there are some options, like once you get to this point, I don't think you'll have perfect cooldowns, so I think it would be more likely that you will be still using the Messerschmitt's Reaver. The cool thing is with the Veer 2-piece, you get the Lightning Rune, which gives 20 seconds of reduced, 20 seconds off the cooldown, basically. So it's much easier to reset Archon with the Messerschmitt's Reaver at a lower cooldown than you were even running without this. Note the swap from stage 2 to stage 3 into cold. If you're able to reroll to cold, you can do that at this point. Not necessary, but just a nice reminder to do that before transitioning into the Nephilim Rifting build, right? There is also the option here, if you did have like near perfect affixes, you can run with 8% everywhere, including the amulet, and get up to 76%, or 75 plus basically would be the minimum. And then you would be able to swap out the Messerschmitts because your Archon would just reset so quickly. The uptime would be so good that you would be able to stack Chantodos within the 4 seconds or so outside of Archon. It would be very fluid even without the Messerschmitts. So that is also an option if you got really lucky on your cooldown affixes. So that's basically it. At this time, at this point, it would be pretty important to go get, run. I don't know if I mentioned it, but the Rorg, the Ring of Royal Grandeur, is an Act 1 bounty specific, so you would be spamming Act 1 bounties until you got the Ring of Royal Grandeur earlier in this process. And then at this point, at Stage 3, is when you would try and seek out the Avarice Band for Globe Pickup in Nephilim Rifting, especially in combination with the Boon of the Hoarder. This is really good for quicker progression in Nephilim Rifting. And then hopefully at this point, I'm trying to account for a lot of randomness, because sometimes you will find set items like really quickly, and you'll find a full 5 pieces or 6 pieces of a set that you need. But other times you won't find them, like you'll find a lot of Firebirds or Taurasha or DMO pieces, but you won't find Veer, right? So this is accounting for that situation where maybe it's the slowest set that you acquire and takes you a lot longer to get the full 6-piece. At that point, you'll then transition into a proper Nephilim Rifting build, which is a separate listing. It's a separate D3 planner, but I'll include it as well in the written guide. But this is a very smooth build, very, very, very fast, so highly recommended. And at that point, your season, you can just go get your Greater of 70 for, don't forget that, for unlocking those primals, and yeah. After that, it's sky's the limit. Anyways, that's it for this quick overview. I tried to make it quick, as quick as possible. For more specific details on nitpicky stuff, again, do check out the written guide, because those will be included there. Any changes I make will be in there. But that's the gist of this leveling method. As I mentioned, there are other leveling methods, The huge advantage to this one is similar to running Legacy of Nightmares or Legacy of Dreams, is that you can completely skip the journey, the seasonal journey. You don't have to do it at all. It allows you to focus more on just rifting and greater rifting and doing a few bounties maybe earlier in season, rather than having to do those side quest-esque tasks and feeling frustrated because you don't have your 4 or 6 piece yet. Yeah, great. But yeah, so anyways, hope you've enjoyed this video, and yeah, thank you.